All right, so carrying pistols.
Carrying pistols. How do you feel about it?
I want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's stopping you, I guess? Like, we're over 21, have been for sadly a good amount of time to have gotten one. What's your reason for not having one today?
I mean, life just gets busy, dude. Like that CPL course, even though I mean, can't you get it done in like a day? Aren't there 1 day courses, or are they all like a full weekend?
No, no, it's like an 8-hour class in some places. It all depends on where you take it, but the one I did was 8 hours, and I think like most of it was in class learning, and then you do a range portion, and then the one I went to had a range portion, and then it had a simulation at the end of it. So you went
Yeah.
through a couple different scenarios where you're in your house, you're out in public, some other there's a bunch of them that you can get kind of run through, and they get progressively more serious, but it kind of runs you through, okay, here's what to expect and the time that you have. But they're pretty good. I mean, it goes by fast, because if you like guns, then you're kind of just walking through it, especially if you've already shot. You're kind of just like, yeah, I'm here to get the piece of paper, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah. No, like so it's not that I don't see the benefit in carrying, especially the direction that the world's going. I do feel it's becoming more and more important to have a means to protect yourself at all times. And it's something that like I've always wanted to do. I just have not I've never sat down and actually just booked the course. I've never just sat down and booked the course, but I plan to very soon. There's, a few things that I'm researching as far as where the best place is, but dude, couple of our buddies took a course and it had that simulation, but they actually
Yeah.
made them like scream it as
Yeah.
part of the simulation. It's dude,
Yeah.
that is so wild. I feel like
I
I'm on a
had,
soap opera.
oh, yeah. I had a guy over my shoulder. He's like, okay, the one I was doing, there was a crazy lady like in my kitchen, and it shows you like walking down the steps and hearing noise, and you see her, and he's like, I just looked at him. He's like, tell her to get the fuck out of your house. And I was like, yeah, you get out of my house. And he's like, no, you need to scream at this lady. This random stranger's in your house. How would you sound if they were in your house? And like they did it one by one. So like down the hall, there was one guy who must have been a football coach or a drill sergeant or something. He was like, it sounded like he was right next to you. And I was like, yeah, okay. His neighbor's definitely going to be able to call 911 for him, because he's just hollering back there.
Yeah,
It's pretty serious. I
dude.
mean,
I
just
mean,
that alone gets you going.
it's training you for a very serious scenario. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like, I understand it. It's just in that situation, especially if I was taking quite a few of my friends took the CPL class together. So if they were all there, dude, there's no way it would have been taken serious. So
It
in
would
a
be fun,
way,
but yeah, it'd be like class. Like, you just like the class clowns, like, oh, it's so hard to not laugh. And then they're showing like actual shooting footage. It might bring it down a notch where you're like, oh, okay, maybe we don't joke around right now.
right, right, yeah. So in a way, like I'm actually kind of happy I did not take it with my friends, just because it is a very serious class. You do need to pay attention, and the consequences. I've never personally been to prison, but I'd like to keep it that way. So
Yeah, it's joking about it. I mean, it's undercutting that it's such a valuable class. I mean, not only just for getting your CPL, but also just getting more comfortable with firearms, and just being in that scenario where like, okay, this whole class is about you having one on you at all times. So like, here's the things that you really do need to know. And the one I took, there was three. Two of them were ex law enforcement. One was ex law enforcement and military. So between basically stacked up all together, like 60 years of experience, it's awesome. Like no question went unanswered. I mean, and they
yeah,
really do a good job at making sure people don't feel out of place. Like there's no dumb questions. Like you can't shit on people for asking a question about something serious like that. So all around, it was a positive experience. And I do have to take mine again to re-up it, because it expired. But I mean, it would be so much fun just to do it again.
yeah, no, for sure. And so you said you have to take it again. I thought the re up process was just like You have to take a class again, or do you just apply to re-up,
Um,
pay any dues?
I I have to look it up because where I live now, I'm not required to have a CPL to conceal carry, so that's kind of why I've like not done it. But um, I do travel quite a bit, so I would like to be able to carry. I I fly more than I drive, so if I do drive, I'd like to be able to carry. So, but I can't. I have to look it up and see if I have to take the class again, or if I just have to do a written test or show that I've had my CPL, and they might just give me a card for the state that I'm in to make it valid again, outside
Mhm.
of other states. So,
Okay.
but
One thing I'm very curious about, just as somebody who doesn't carry, what is your mentality like? Like, is it just like that I'm the king of the world? Or, what kind of mental space do you go into when you know you have so much responsibility like on your shoulders at all times because you are bringing a weapon into the public?
that's actually a really good question. In that CPL class, they made it very apparent that just because you have your CPL now and you're legally able to carry a gun does not mean you're the law, does not mean you're John Wick and you can just go around pulling your gun out every single place you feel like it. If anything, that class kind of taught me I do not want to be in a position where I have to pull my gun. So carrying it, I'm more of like, it kind of gives me like an obligation, like, okay, if I have a gun, I'm in a better spot to be able to actually do something. And it's all scenario based. I mean, like you see the story about that one guy in the mall who stopped a mass shooting. That's kind of more like what I'm talking about. But I definitely feel a lot more. I'm more at peace going out in public and out and about, but at the same time, I'm way more aware of my surroundings. I tend to be like that just in general from being around a lot of law enforcement people and military people in my family, but
Hmm.
it's a weird sense of like balance. Like I'm like, it's kind of like, okay, I know that I have the best source of protection with me right now to protect me and my family or whoever's with me. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, if I have this, I have to be making sure that I'm aware of what's going on at all times, no matter what. So it's a very weird
Right.
headspace, but it's kind of
And
nice being able, like being forced.
does that get exhausting ever? Just like being in that headspace constantly when you're out and about? Like, are there certain days where you're like, man, I really just don't feel like being that attentive? I'm just, it's not worth carrying.
Actually, for me, no. Like I said, I've been carrying for, geez, like 6 years now, and it's not like it's like out of mind where I'm like, oh, I'm used to it, but at the same time, it's not like I get back and I'm like, oh my god, I felt like I was in like, Vietnam, trenching through the jungle. Like it's more of just like okay, I'm sitting down at a restaurant. I never sit with my back to the door. If I'm at a movie theater, I'm always checking exits, making sure like, yes, I'm watching the movie, but am I noticing people getting up and walking out and walking back in, or who's coming in? Like
Hmm.
you're kind of just like you're not tuning out life as much, I guess. You're kind of just paying attention to all the small stuff around you, which in a good way, you kind of just it's a little bit more I wouldn't say freeing, but it's more fun. Like you can kind of just like you tend to develop like a way to watch people more. And people
Yeah.
watching just in general is fun as hell. So when you're doing it in a terms of like, okay, something would happen right now, like, okay, I gotta exit there. I would move this way, whatnot. So
Right.
I wouldn't
Right.
say it ever gets exhausting.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I just want to say this because I know you mentioned a movie theater. Are you legally allowed to carry into a theater?
I can't remember. I can't remember if it's in all 50 states, but movie theaters might be one of those places you're not allowed to carry in.
Believe in
Again,
Michigan,
this,
you're not allowed to carry into a theater.
yeah, yeah. Like hospitals, churches, courthouses, police stations, and stuff like that, you're not allowed to carry.
Schools, government buildings.
Yep, yep. But again, it's like, like the guy in the CPL class said, like the best shootout you can get into is the one you completely avoid. So yes,
Mhm.
you have the means to protect yourself. That doesn't mean you need to be the first person to act on something. Cause, one guy asked a question. He's like, okay, if you're out with your wife versus you're out by yourself and something goes down, what's your response? He's like, well, I'm ex law enforcement. My first thing by myself is I'm going to immediately try and stop the threat. If I'm with my family, I'm getting my family out of it. That's like the first and foremost thing, like on top of my mind. I'm getting my family out of there and making sure they're safe. And then again,
Yeah,
I'm ex law enforcement. I'm going back in. So, but he said, the best shootout you can get is not doing one of them.
right. Your job is not to be the hero that shoots the guy. Your job is to keep yourself and your family safe, whatever that means.
But the
Now,
main point of the CPL is if you're if you're feeling that your life is at stake, then you have that piece of equipment to keep you alive. And, you're getting mugged, or somebody's in your house, you're getting kidnapped, does it like all those
mhm,
kinds of situations where the only thing that's going to stop this from happening is if I shoot somebody. You know,
right, right.
people talk about mace and tasers and stuff like that. There's really it's just like you can rely on if you shoot somebody, you shoot somebody. Like that's the most like effective way to end a threat if your life is completely at risk.
Right. And, that is one of the things, I know we talked about what's kept me from taking the course. I feel like any reasonable person has this same feeling, but dude, it scares the hell out of me having to actually having to use lethal means of defense, especially, people go to prison for shooting somebody who broke into their house.
Right.
Like
Right.
any time, any situation where you actually have to use your concealed carry, I mean, you're almost guaranteeing yourself a court date.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if that day does not go your way, I mean, you're risking prison time.
Well, and it begs the question too, like, have there been people out there who have taken the course, have been carrying, they carried a long enough time to, kind of see these horror stories of guys have shot people from robbing their home or these terrible situations that people are put in, and they go to discharge their firearm and they end up in court being on the hook for manslaughter or murder because that law in that state doesn't cover them. And what if these people end up in a situation where they're so scared to use it from like they're more scared of going to prison than getting killed in their own home or killed by a stranger. Like that
Right.
is
Like
scary in of itself.
at that point you're almost losing your right to defend yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why again it's so important to know where you live, what the parameters are. I mean, yes, America is considered the most free country in the world, but again, there's sometimes where it doesn't feel like it because there's so many loopholes to stuff like, oh, you're legally carrying, but this guy was unarmed and he was attacking you, and there's really nothing that legally can show with evidence that you feel like your life was in danger. Like it feels like it can be kind of spun on you, but I know a guy who always said it's better to be tried by six than carried by, or tried by 12 than carried by six. You know what I mean? Like basically
Mhm.
referring to it's way better to be up in a court date fighting for your voice saying that you were in such a situation to discharge a firearm on somebody than dying and not being here anymore.
Right, right. And I think that's where it comes down to, knowing your local laws to a T, knowing your equipment, trusting your training, and then also like just like I just said, continuous training.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that begs the question, like you said you talked about research and stuff like that. Have you kind of gone into equipment and stuff like that and kind of dove into getting ready to carry before you even took the class?
I mean, like I own a couple of pistols. I'm very comfortable with the ones that I own. I have kind of on the cheaper side. I have a Taurus G2C. It's the first pistol I bought. Very comfortable with it. It's on the smaller compact size, and then recently just purchased a PSA dagger. It's considered the compact version, but it is more so, at least in my hand, a full size feel. Uh, so I do have that gun that I would like to carry, and then I also have that gun that's great for the home defense scenario as well.
Now, comparing those 2 price points versus each gun, I mean, I know that one is superior just from everything you've told me about it, because I don't know too much about a PSA dagger. Again, that's one of the kind of quite a few things you've mentioned to me that you found that I've never heard of. So, like between the 2, which one would you carry when you got your license?
To be honest with you, the dagger's a little bit big, in my opinion, for carrying, and the G2C, while it has been a great pistol since I've bought it, it's like the trigger's starting to go out on it. It is like the bottom line price point. It's like one step up from a high point. So from, a reliability aspect, I would probably end up buying a new carry gun.
Outside of both of those?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have something in mind that you would think would be good?
Not currently. I'm open to ideas. So in the comments, let me know. What do you carry?
I'll save you some time. Glock.
Well, see, that's the thing. I know you mentioned that you don't really know much about the daggers. If you know Glock, you know the dagger. It's literally these same
Yeah, it's a
parts, just
clone.
rebranded, and it has a ported slide.
Yeah. But you
Now,
don't have the cool factor saying that you own a Glock.
is that a flex though?
No, it's
Anybody
not.
can own a brick.
I'm just being the stereotypical Glock owner, thinking that it's like the best versus everything. I mean, yeah, for the like honestly for the money, I mean, if you want to get, I mean, that's always something people are going to think about when it comes to really any hobby, but especially guns. Again, personal opinion, Glock is a great gun and they have a lot of different variations so it can kind of fit your needs, but you don't need to be buying, $3,000-$4,000 pistols to carry, especially if it's your first gun. I mean, if you got the money for it, congrats, money bags, you got it. You're doing much better than I am. But I just think it's kind of like it's one of those things you kind of ease yourself into. And I would say you start on the smaller end. Again, this depends on your size a little bit, but first go with the gun that fits you best,
Absolutely. Unless it's a high point.
unless it's a high point.
We could just leave that one off the board.
Yeah, don't get high point.
Now, we've gotten into what I have. What do you carry?
So right now I have just started carrying a Springfield Hellcat Pro, and the reason I switched is because I did have the Glock 19X, and both of them are in 9 mil. I love my Glock so much. It was the first pistol that I bought, and I carried it for a long time. But I did notice that with my size, I'm not the biggest person. That when it got to summer, I got really anxious that I was printing all the time. And I like the main thing about concealed carrying is you're concealing it. You don't want people to know you have a gun. For,
Right.
everybody has their own reasons. Me personally, I just don't like people seeing that I have a gun. I feel like it's kind of like oh, that guy's a gun. I'm either going to take it or that guy's going down first in the robbery. But I loved
Exactly.
it. It's a little big for the summer. So I kind of I didn't downgrade. I just downsized to the Hellcat, and it's been great. I mean, it shoots great. It came with a God, I can't remember what's on it. It came with a an red dot on it, that was another thing that I kind of got right into. I don't know if it was the best move to just immediately go, yeah, now I'm going to start carrying with an aim point on it, but I've loved it, and after shooting it a couple times, it feels a lot more like a carry gun versus my Glock. Iron sight's a never
Mhm.
bad thing. I get, there's a big debate on what's better, but I think it's been a great switch personally, and it's major comfortability factor as well because carrying a Glock for me, appendix carry wasn't the best. So I've really liked it.
Yeah, for sure. And I've never actually shot a pistol with an optic on it. But what I will say is, in a self defense scenario, I've mentioned this before, you have to account for every round that leaves your barrel. And personally, I feel I'd be more accurate with an optic versus iron sights in an adrenaline fueled scenario.
Yeah.
So honestly, I'm on the side of running an optic. I know that is, like you mentioned, a huge debate, but That being said, I don't know. I have yet to shoot one. I will be getting one soon for this dagger though.
I feel like it's just one of those things that, you know, you shoot like 500 rounds in different positions, scenarios, drawing, appendix on your hip.
Mhm.
I don't really like cross draw, but do it all, I mean, figure out what you like. And, again, I don't know that optics really, if you're checking your equipment normally, which is what you should be doing, you should never really have to worry about your red dot going funky on you. But iron sights, that they're going to stay true pretty much forever. So, I mean, that is a positive. But again, it's all about what you feel most comfortable with when you're carrying and what you feel like is going to give you the best chance at defending yourself.
Absolutely. And I mean, that can be said about any part of your equipment. So when it comes down to what caliber, what holster, all of this is just whatever works best for you. We can voice our opinions, but what works for us may not work for you.
Yep.
Now, it is worth mentioning every pistol that we've talked about so far is 9 mil. So I would say that we're both comfortably on the 9 mil side of the conversation. I know the top three calibers that people carry is 9 millimeter. We got 380, which is more so just for like that a purse gun or just something very small and very concealable. And then you've got 45 ACP, which is like the cannon of carry guns.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I I've only had 9 mil. I've yet to buy a 45. That's on the long list of stuff that I want. I would feel pretty good carrying about 45. Again, it just kind of comes down to the size of the gun. I mean, I know they sell micros and compacts and everything. Again, the whole debate is, 45 has more stopping power, and more often than not, 9 mil you can have more rounds. So it's kind of like six half dozen of the other. It's which one do you prefer? If you're a tack driver anywhere from 5 to 40 yards with a 45, yeah, absolutely. I personally right now can only talk about 9 mil. I'd love to get a 45 and kind of go through the motions of carrying it and practicing with it and seeing how it feels. But again, I would love to get to the point where I'm like kind of eeny meeny miny mowing what I'm going to carry that day because I have just too many options. Like that's the dream right
Right.
there. But
Yeah. No, the biggest factor in choosing 9 mil for myself is, I've put a fair amount of 45 rounds downrange. When I'm in a scenario where I'm putting as many rounds downrange as I possibly can as fast as I can. Just from a standpoint of trying to be accurate,
yeah,
the recoil on a 45 is just it's too much.
different. Oh, it's too
Like
much.
I can hold a 9 mil steady.
Hmm.
45, I mean, yeah, okay, I don't wanna say it's too much. Like, I ain't no bitch. But
Papa didn't raise no bitch.
yeah, yeah. So, but with a 45, I could definitely be more accurate and put more rounds down range faster.
Yeah. Well, I think the most common thing that we will probably say is it all comes down to your training and your practice. If you put
Mhm.
I've put I don't know how many rounds of 9 mil down the range. I can't confidently say I've ever even shot a 45 yet, and that's just because I don't know anybody who has one. I've shot 45 long Colt out of like a peacemaker or peacekeeper, which is it peacemaker or peacekeeper? I can't remember. Um,
Peacemaker.
Peacemaker, which is about as close as I'll get, but in a more modern. Like I'm not concealed carrying like that scene of Jack Nicholson and Batman where he pulls out like a 9 foot long barrel.
What about buying that 22 that has that barrel?
Yeah, of course, of course. But yeah, I mean, it's just like I personally right now prefer 9 mil because that's all I've really shot. So I'm not gonna just like if I bought a 45, I wouldn't immediately start carrying it. I would just make sure like kind of run through it, make sure I'm comfortable. I mean, it's the same way with holsters. I mean, holsters is you have to make sure your equipment is good for you and you're comfortable with it.
Right, right. And I'm not familiar with all of the like carrying positions. So I know appendix, that's the most
Hmm.
popular one. It scares the hell out of me because a pistol without a thumb safety pointed straight at my little gold member.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a scary thought, and without training, I don't want to cheddar bob myself.
Yeah. Cheddar Bob. I think that like should be the phrase in CPL course when they're teaching appendix carry. It's like, don't be afraid to cheddar bob yourself. But so something worth mentioning with appendix carries, I know that's a big hump to get over. And when I first started carrying, I just went straight appendix. And I was like, the first couple times I went out, I was like, man, it's weird having it pointed straight south. But at the same time, like on a Glock, it has without an actual like safety like how a 1911 would have. It has a three action safety. So it's got three different things that are protecting that gun from going off. That put me at a little bit more of an ease. But at the same time too, what made me even more comfortable with it is just carrying more. Like I'm not even
Right,
talking about going out in public. Like throw that shit in the front and walk around your house. Start vacuuming with your 40, 45 in your pants. Like just start doing stuff in your house that like kind of you see like how you move with it. And you're like, I'm clearly moving differently because I'm not used to this. Like
right.
bending over, I looked like I was in like a ballet. I was like one legging it trying to pick stuff up. And I was like, okay, either A, somebody's going to think something's wrong with this guy, or B, he has a gun in his pants. Like you
Right,
just have
right.
to get over that hump. Like nobody knows you're carrying. Like nobody, unless they spot it, unless they know what they're looking for, and you have really experienced people out there who have, people call it cop eyes. Like you can pick out people and see like how they're walking, how they're talking, how they're moving, whatever, and point out a gun. Like for the most part, nobody is ever just thinking, does that guy have a gun? I'm gonna size him up and see if I can tell if he has a gun or not. Like nobody
Only people that
notices.
have guns think that way.
100%, 100%. That's exactly how it goes. So if you start carrying, don't just not prepare for it and be like, oh yeah, nobody's even watching. Like you can make it noticeable enough where if you start talking to somebody for a second, they're gonna be like, yeah, you have a Desert Eagle in your crop top, buddy. I can see that. But
Right.
you if you just become more comfortable with it and you feel more natural with it, you'll actually forget that you're carrying it too. I mean, especially the more you do it, like if you're every single time you go out, you have it and you have different holsters for different type pants, shirts, sweatshirts, like you will not notice it, but you will know it's there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, because that mentality that we talked about earlier.
Yeah. But I will say, like, I think there's like three main ones. It's appendix, your your dominant hand hip, and there is
Mhm.
cross draw. I have never known anybody who conceals in a cross draw. From what I gather, it's like the worst way to draw a pistol just because you're reaching across your body. You have to pull clothing out of the way in a funkier position. It again, if you are, the cross draw master, don't let me tell you otherwise. It's just about what you feel comfortable with and what is the best fit for you.
For sure, absolutely. Now, let's say you have your setup, you picked out your pistol, you're good with the caliber, you're comfortable with it. What's next there? Like, what's the next step?
The next
If you
step,
if you don't wanna go to prison.
the next step is how to legally carry. I'm not 1,000% sure if there's like a blanket law what happens if you what I don't even know what happens if you get caught without a permit if it's not legal in that state. I don't know if that's a misdemeanor or a felony.
In a lot of states, it's a felony. So,
Really?
you have states like California, New York, Massachusetts. Carrying without a permit is a felony, and it's
Okay.
1 to 5 years in state prison, plus fines. But
Dang.
then you have states that are like mixed requirement. So Michigan, my home state, we have a mixed requirement. So like open carry without a permit is legal. Uh, but let's say you're open carrying and then you take it off your hip when you get in your car and put it in the glove box, boom, felony. So just because you can have it openly visible on your hip in public, the proper way to not cause law enforcement issues is you have to unload it and put it in a case when you get in your car and lock the case.
Yep. I was just about to say that as soon as you get into a car, you are concealed carrying. Because the definition of concealing a firearm is like the practice of having a weapon that is completely hidden from the view of the public. So, however that comes to fruition, to walk into those lines of it being concealed, you could be breaking the law. I know it sounded really bad if I didn't know if it was a felony or not. I just have never had to worry about that because I follow the rules. I'm a good boy. I follow the stuff that I'm required to. So,
Punishments are like they're heavily determined by, your history, right?
yeah.
So if you have a previous felony on your record, you're guaranteed prison time.
Well, because
But
you're not
and then
supposed to be having a gun at all.
right, right. But then, you have other like first time offenders. Let's say your CPL expired and you got caught carrying without renewing. It's not an automatic felony. I'm not saying you should do this, but it's not an automatic felony. Some courts will give you a misdemeanor, like 90 days in jail or maybe even probation. Either way, not worth it. Just know your laws, carry the proper CPL. Uh, but then another thing, an important thing to mention is some states have no requirement.
Yep.
So, you can just go out on a whim, buy a pistol and slap it on your hip and say, I'm good to go, or put it in appendix carry. You can conceal it and be good to go.
Yep. I believe Wyoming, Texas, and Montana. There's there may be more. These might not all be correct, but
Florida is
I
one as
believe
well.
in Florida are four states that I know for sure. Now four. Thank you. That you do not have to have a CPL to conceal carry, and you do not have to have any type of permit to open carry. So you can go buy a pistol, if pass background check, get your pistol, you can start concealed carrying. That being said, if you are wandering outside of state lines and you go into those other states that require a CPL, you're falling into those kind of scary waters where you're going to get in trouble if you get caught with that. So
Boom,
it's
felony.
it, boom, felony, immediate, cross the border, felony. I think just again, we can't stress enough that I mean, having a firearm is a right as an American, but at the same time, it's your responsibility to be, I guess, responsible with it. You're supposed to know everything what it takes to actually own, operate, and carry a firearm. So just make sure you're checking your local state legislature, keeping up to date with on it. Make sure your CPL is up to date, and again, just keep training, making sure you're doing all that stuff so you're not underprepared and causing any legal problems.
Yeah, and even in states where there's no requirement for like a CPL or anything like that, you still have to know the rules. So
Absolutely.
like in those states, you can get in the same amount of trouble if you walk into a school or a government building or, a church while concealed carrying. Like
Right.
you're not immune to punishment just because that there's no regulation as far as who can carry.
Yeah. Yeah. And a good place to go, there's a website called VedderHolsters.com. They do have a section where you can check your uh, all 50 states as to where and where not your CPL is transferable to other states. So, for
As well as your
example,
state's requirements.
yes, it has all this information. It has issue type, are they constitutional carry, open carry, if you're a non-resident, all this other stuff that you can go into that'll give you all the information you need when you're getting your CPL. It's a great one to look at if you are carrying for the first time and you are going to a different state. It's really useful to look up so you can kind of figure out, okay, what do I need to have? Can I bring it? If you don't have that reciprocity in other states where it's not honored in the next state you're going, you have to basically treat it like you're checking it on an airplane. You have to unload it, make sure it's in a locked box and the ammunition is locked and separate from the gun. So again, vetterholsters.com, they have a great amount of information here for you to look at. So it's really useful. And I honestly wish I had that instead of just like Googling a giant road trip of like, okay, I can carry here, here, and here, and not here. Good to know.
And that's another crazy thing to think about. While carrying, it's your responsibility. If you have to go around a state on a road trip to legally carry, that's just what you have to do.
Hmm.
And that's just wild to think about. You have to plan your route to your destination based on where you're able to carry.
Yep.
Especially people that like I don't personally live that close to state lines, but some people, they walk out of their front door and they're 20 yards away from a different state. So it's a completely whole new set of rules that you have to be savvy on.
Yep. Especially like if you're going from Michigan to Illinois, it is not honored there. It isn't. You have to have I think you have to have a CPL from Chicago, or they do not allow a CPLs in that state. I cannot remember.
I
Might
know
want to open the
Illinois
book on
is
that.
one of the strictest states when it comes to carrying,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And
aside
another
from
thing to
California.
mention, oh yeah,
California.
California is always like the unwritten state or unmentioned state because everybody knows how strict it is. But
As
another
I always say, you have to have a license to breathe in California.
yeah, another thing to note is carrying while you're driving. Even if you have your CPL, you do need to know there are certain parameters. If you do get pulled over, there is duty to inform. So some states you are required to immediately let the officer know that you are carrying and you have a CPL. If you do take a CPL course, they are most likely going to teach you how to handle that situation because it's nothing crazy. Just keep your hands where you're supposed to. You let them know. The guy who I had going over this portion of my class basically said if anybody who I pulled over brought up that they had a CPL like they were supposed to and they were carrying, I would basically say, if you don't reach for yours, I won't reach for mine. You're getting a
Yeah.
ticket for speeding though. Like it's it just you again, you have to know where you're at and what you're legally obligated to know. So some
And the
states you don't
biggest
even need to know, or you don't even need to tell them that you have it on them or have it on you.
right. And the biggest thing here is if you're carrying legally, there's nothing to worry about. Like most cops are
Yep.
going to be cool about it. You will have that occasional cop where they're like, you know, they make you step out of the vehicle or something to conduct the stop.
Hmm.
But and that is up to their discretion, whatever makes them feel safest in that scenario. Everybody's just trying to be safe. That's the whole point of carrying.
Yep.
So now I know you've taken, we've talked about the fact that you've taken the course. You've mentioned it a few times now. What was that course like? I know you said we were talking about how it kind of is an 8-hour course, but from somebody who's never had any experience in that classroom, what does that day look like?
Well, I'll tell you right now, it was very fun. You go there, you can either bring a pistol that you do own, can't conceal carry it there until you get your license though, or they do have firearms there for the training portion. So you go, they kind of give you a rundown of what you're going to learn. It's kind of like what we're talking about. You go over the laws, what you're expected to know in terms of when you're carrying, where not to carry. They talk about the actual involving of yourself in a shooting. So they do, for me, that class, they did show some footage of both body cam officer shootings that were cleared good shootings and some other ones that were just normal citizens, like civilians shootings that they were classified self defense. And they also showed ones that were not self defense to give you an idea. Again, the minute you get your CPL, you are not Superman. You are not a vigilante going out and stopping crime by yourself. Like, they really did hammer home. This is for yourself. It's not a badge that you get. It's not like you're a cop. So,
Right.
you do some schooling, and then for the shooting portion of it, it was very simple. I mean, it is nothing crazy. You're not lobbing 80-yard shots with a 9 mil. You're taking, I think it was 7 yards. You had to hit 5 shots in the center mass of a target of a body outline. And if you got five, you were like, it's like you've got like three and above, you pass. It's really not hard, and it may seem like it's a very low requirement, but they really talked about that most self-defense shootings happen within 3 to 7 yards. So they give you that quick training, but at the very end, they do talk about like it is your responsibility to be comfortable and to be knowledgeable of what you're doing with a firearm. So
Mhm.
it was a quick shoot. It was very fun. It's really cool seeing the very broad band of experience there. I mean, you had people who had little to no information about a gun and they wanted to start carrying to get into guns more. And then you had people there who were like, I've been shooting for years. I just have not got my CPL and I really want one. So I mean,
Right.
it's for anybody and everybody. It was a really good course. They did a fantastic job. And they do a simulation at the end like I was talking about earlier. They kind of just run you through like they take it very seriously too. Like it's not like a just, oh, we're going to do a simulation kind of show you. It's like, okay, this person's in your house. They're trying to kill you or take your shit. And here's what you need to do. And they kind of go through calling 911 before you actually go and see what's going on, how to carry your pistol when you're in that situation, and you know how you're supposed to react to certain stuff. Like you want to make sure you're loud, you want to make sure you're being heard, you want to make sure that you're telling them to get out of your house. You are giving them a warning. I have a gun. I will defend myself. So again, it kind of goes back to what you were saying about courtrooms and getting tried for manslaughter or murder because you defended yourself. Like
Hmm.
giving them that out, like, okay, if you have somebody at gunpoint, you need to make sure that if you're going to pull the trigger, you have to mean it. I mean, you can't just start slobbing rounds at people and like shooting them while they're on the ground. I mean, you shoot until the threat is no more. So, kind of threat
Right.
identifying was a big one too. I mean, again, that class was great. Just with the amount of gun knowledge I had going into it, I felt a lot richer going out of it.
Okay. So the class is worth taking not only for people who are brand new, but also, just enhancing like a gun enthusiast, enhancing their knowledge as well. It's like
Absolutely.
it's good for everybody.
Absolutely. The amount of experience that was in that room was very, very fun too. I mean, it's really comforting to know when you're asking questions to instructors or teachers and they never hit you with a, no, I'm not too sure about that. I mean, they really have a great grasp on all of this stuff as they should. I mean, these guys are real cool and real fun to be around. I mean, they made the learning process fun, and I feel like for people who were there that didn't know much about guns felt way more comfortable and way more safe handling a gun as they left. So that's worth saying.
Okay. So, for somebody who has zero experience with a pistol, because, even if you have experience with guns, shotguns, rifles, a pistol can be intimidating
Yeah,
if you've never used one before. So, leaving that class, you kind of gain that comfort. You have that knowledge of how they operate or how the weapon operates, as well as you're trained on how to carry out one of these situations.
absolutely. And again, they do go into everything that you really need to know when you start carrying. You need to know the bare minimums of how to operate a firearm. And basically anything after that, basically they're not going to teach you how to be comfortable. They're not going to teach you, okay, then you go buy this holster, then you go buy this gun, you go buy this ammo. That all comes later with the more knowledge you gain from it.
Hmm.
They also really did talk about too the difference of carrying between men and women. Obviously, men and women have different frames, so it was really cool. There was a good amount of women in there too. I mean, they were all very inquisitive, and it's not like it was a very overly I don't know what the word for it. Like it wasn't weighted. Like it wasn't like there
Hmm.
was 40 dudes and one woman. Like it was mixed. But it was very cool to see that it is for anybody and everybody. It was really cool. And they go into talking about like there is a difference between carrying when you're a man and when you're a woman. You have to be carrying to your build size and what you're doing. So, guy in a business suit's probably going to carry in his chest. Okay, if you wear pantsuits and you have like different uniforms or dress code or whatever at your work, or I wouldn't say work, you probably can't carry it at work, but anywhere that you're wanting to fit where your gun is, they go into there's
Hmm.
many different options as to how to do that effectively. So it was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, you complete the course, you have your pistol. What's next? Because I know there's some waiting time. Like you have to apply for at least in states where CPL is required, you have to apply for the CPL. You don't get it right away.
Yep.
Are you
The
have to wait until you receive that CPL to carry, correct?
Yeah, so the class itself is not the license. That is to apply for the license that shows that you took the training. So The training itself is worth nothing unless you file the proper paperwork to obtain the CPL. And you can look through your local police department or local state legislature for applications for stuff like that. Again, you really need to know your state's laws, but the class is just a class. It is not your license. You need to make sure that you have that, and they'll give you all the information to input showing that you've obtained the class. Usually it'll have, all of your information, the instructors, where you took it, and, the length of the class or what kind of class it was and stuff like that. After you do that, you apply for it. You'll have some waiting time until you receive your CPL card. It's more often than not just a copy of your driver's license picture and shows when it was valid and when it expires.
And at least, is it different between states, like how long it's good for before it has to be renewed?
It really, well, I think the standard's 5 years.
Okay,
I do not know personally. It could vary. It could be yearly for some places. I would have to bet that the most common is 5 years.
got it. Okay. Another thing to keep in mind when you're applying for your CPL, know when it expires. Because if you're carrying and you have to use it, and then they walk up to you afterwards and say, "Let me see your CPL," and it's expired,
Hmm.
that's where you say, "Oh,
Yep. Yep. They also kind of did go into like, okay, you were in a self-defense shooting. What happens next? And these were officers or ex-law enforcement military saying this, like, all you do is have somebody else call 911 and explain what happened, and you wait at the scene until you get picked up. You're going to get picked up. You're going to go to police station and they'll take a statement and everything like that. So, again, there's a lot more that goes into that, and that kind of pulls away from the carrying side of it, but that goes along with it. If you do discharge a firearm, it doesn't end there. There's more stuff that goes with it. Your pistol is probably going to be locked up for a bit until everything clears. So they did go into that a little bit. That was more just about what the course was.
okay, gotcha." So, I mean, general conclusions, general thoughts here. The main takeaway for myself as somebody who has not taken the course is, for one, the course is nothing to be intimidated by. At least it sounds like where you personally took it was very welcoming to people of all skill levels, or like all levels of knowledge. And then, from there, it's just about knowing your local laws, and having it down to a T, because you can get yourself into some serious trouble just trying to protect yourself if you don't know the
Absolutely.
proper precautions.
Yep. Well, I personally think I love carrying. I think again, being in the gun community, it's one of those things that you just really got to think about before you do it. I mean, it's something that's you're not going to be comfortable with off the bat, and I've loved carrying just for having that. I have guns in my house, and I feel very safe in my home for that reason alone. Not just because I have locked doors and locked windows and all that. Like, I have protection at home if something were to happen. So being able to take that out with me into the world is very comforting. I think it's very useful. And, it's one thing to say too that there's a big difference between concealed carrying and open carrying. If some states allow you to carry without or open carry without a permit, but you have to have one to conceal. I don't personally like open carrying if you're just going to the mall or, out to eat. If
Hmm.
I'm camping or hunting or anything, I'm not going to conceal carry. It's just pointless at that time. There's really no reason to. I think the main thing about conceal carrying is you are trying to make sure that you are going through your normal day life and nobody knows that you have a gun. Again, it comes back
Right.
to nobody's just watching you all day long. Like, that's what it's going to feel like when you start carrying, is that everybody knows you're carrying. They know you have a gun. And that's just not how it is. Like, the whole point of it is to make sure that you know yourself, that you have the means to protect yourself. And I just don't think open carrying is like the best, just in terms of, somebody can just up and snatch it from you because they see it, or
Right.
they see that, okay, I'm going to go and rob this place. This guy has a gun. I'm either A, going to take him out, or I'm going to make sure I take his gun. So
You almost make
again, I
yourself a target.
exactly, exactly. And you're just drawing more attention to yourself than necessary. So again, it depends on where you live. I mean, there's places where people are open carrying all the time and it's no big deal just because that's how it is. Small towns out west, that's kind of a very common thing. Apparently Florida, which I didn't know. But I think if you're gonna do it, great. Just make sure that you're doing it in a safe way and you're comfortable with what you have and can't hammer it home enough. Just make sure that you have enough trading to be comfortable. You make sure that you are up to par on everything and you're doing everything legally. And if you take that gun out, that's it. Like you got to
You have
make
to be
sure
able
you're
to
ready to
answer for it.
point it and shoot it. Yeah. But it's really easy class and it's not a super crazy complicated process. I honestly believe obtaining a firearm is way more hard than to actually get the license to conceal one. So it's not hard. It's not intimidating. If you just get out there and do it, it's really fun.
And it could save your life.
Absolutely. That's a main takeaway. Could save your life.
Well, that's
Huge
pretty
point
much
in this
all.
there on my part. I'm just like, oh, it's fun.
Right, right. Yeah. You've got that wish a motherfucker would complex going on.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
Well, that's pretty much all I have on carrying. Are you pretty squared away yourself?
Yeah, man. I think this was a fun one. I like talking about this one. I know a good amount about it. I'm pretty rusty, if I must admit. I definitely need to. This is one of those things that I'm just like, man, I really got to get back into that. I mean, I do know my laws. I do know what I am restricted to and everything that where I live. But again, there's never a time where you think you know enough. You can never know enough.
Right. You can never know enough. You can never know everything.
Exactly.
Perfect. Well, let us know down below what your everyday carry is. If you haven't taken the CPL course, let us know why. We're very interested to hear. And that's all I got.
Europe.